So Samaritans go back to the time of Solomon. We're right around the time of Solomon. So David was the king, right? So you have Israel. It's a united nation. There's one big nation of Israel, right? And they were there, and David ruled that nation. David dies. Solomon takes the throne. Solomon rules and reigns, and what Solomon did is Solomon created all of these building projects. So Solomon started doing all of these public works. He started building all of these beautiful things in the nation, and he was also building the temple. And while Solomon was doing this, he was conscripting people from the land, right? John, you got to go to work. Wait a minute, the king needs you. But I got a job over here. Doesn't matter, John, you're going to work over here. They were taking people and conscripting them into the service to build these public works. Now, obviously, they were paying them, but it didn't matter. You didn't really have a choice. You were forced to go and work and build these public works. They were also putting heavy taxations on the people. And so what happens, after Solomon dies, the temple is built. And Solomon's son takes the throne, whose name is Rehoboam. Now, Rehoboam is basically a 20-something who was raised with a lot of privilege and a lot of entitlement. And so Rehoboam takes the throne, and he's all about ego, all about entitlement, and all about arrogance and ignorance. His ignorance, he didn't understand that his father, Solomon, didn't rule from a power position. Solomon ruled through influence. And Solomon ruled through the influence that God had given him over the nation. And Solomon led the people with a vision. And part of the vision of the whole public works projects wasn't just let's build aqueducts and things like that, but let's build the temple of God. So it was part of a unified vision, and Solomon would draw people to that, but he put burdens on the people. And so here you have Rehoboam coming into power, and he's like in his 20s. And so all of his father's counselors come to Solomon. The people come to Solomon and say, look, your dad put all these heavy taxes on us. Your dad put all these heavy conscriptions on us. Don't you think it would be nice that now that the temple is built, is if you gave us some relief and you lifted the burdens off of us now, and so that we can all kind of share in the blessing here? And so Solomon's counselors come to Rehoboam and they say, hey, this is a great idea. Let's give the people relief. Let's let the people enjoy the prosperity that's come upon the land. Let's let the people enjoy the blessings, and let's let them enjoy it together. Let's relieve them of the tax burden, and let's honor God. And Rehoboam's like, y'all don't know anything. And he goes, and the Bible says he went and consulted with the people he grew up with. He went and got his homies, right? He's got all his bros coming in with the chains in the phones and flexing the 22s on their SUVs, right? And they're coming in, yo, what's up, bro? Boom, yeah. Oh, no, we ain't gonna do it like that. And so all of Solomon's bros counseled him to be a bigger man than his father. And he said to them, I will not relieve your burden. My father afflicted you with whips. I will afflict you with scorpions. Solomon didn't afflict him with whips. He's just basically given a metaphor. Whatever my father did to you, I will do worse. My father taxed you at this rate. Well, we're going to do worse. And there's a famous story where he sticks out his little finger, and he says, and I'll let you figure it out. So just to let you know, so some of you might be appalled at how gritty the Bible is. The Bible is very gritty. I don't know if you know that. It's very gritty. It's not holy and sanctified in every way. God just lets it tell it like it is. And so Rehoboam sticks out his little finger, and he says, my little finger is greater than my father's loins. You're like, well, what's his loins? You figure that out, right? Basically, what he's saying is, I'm a bigger man than my father. This guy was nothing, right? He's coming out of rich and entitlement. He's coming out of private schools, right? He's coming out of, living in the mansion and blowing it up and partying with his friends at the palace. This guy doesn't know anything. He's clearly not trained, clearly not equipped, right? Not developed at all, and he takes the throne and he puts incredible burdens back upon the people. Well, the people said, we've had enough of this. And so 10 of the tribes, there were 12 tribes, well, including Levi. There were 13 technically, but Levites belonged to the Lord, so he pulled that out and said, they belong to me. So there's 12 tribes of Israel. 10 of the 12 tribes say, we're not having it, and they go north and they separate from the kingdom of Judah. And so what happens now is you have the nation that divides. And you have the northern kingdom called Israel, and you have the southern kingdom called Judah. This happened in the days of Rehoboam. And the northern kingdom, the 10 tribes to the north, they basically cut off the worship of Yahweh. They were not going to worship the God of Israel anymore. They kind of began to create their own worship. and their king kind of began to create this mingled mixture of whatever it is he could find, and created this idea, and they basically began to worship the gods of the culture. And when that began to happen, these nations separated from them. And then right after this is interesting, right after this blood feud, they separate, and it created a blood feud that lasted 500 years. And they created the northern kingdom, and the northern kingdom became Shomer, or Shoraman, and it means, in Hebrew, it means thorn or sold. And so the word Samaritan comes from that word. And so when a Jew would look at the Samaritan, they would say they're the thorn, or they would say they're the sellouts. That's how they viewed them. So they viewed them in this negative context. But the northern kingdom made an alliance immediately with Egypt. And so what happens is, right after this separation, within not even a couple of years, the northern kingdom goes and aligns themselves with Egypt. Egypt was to the south of Israel. Egypt then invades Judah, conquers Judah, doesn't enslave it, but makes Judah pay tribute to Egypt. And so now Judah is now the one paying Egypt. And so then you have the northern kingdom, but we're not done yet. This is where the Samaritans really come from. And so the Samaritans are there. Judah is now paying money back down into Egypt. And there's another army over here called the Assyrian Empire. And the Assyrians, it was all of this whole region's called Mesopotamia. And it was one of the most violent regions in all of the world. This region has been back and forth with conflict for just centuries. From the beginning of time, this whole region. And so Assyria and Egypt aren't getting along. Well, who's in between Assyria and Egypt? Israel, right? And so now they're going to fight, and they're going to go back and forth. Well, Assyria was very powerful, so Assyria comes south, and they know that the northern kingdom of Israel are allies of Egypt. And so they just decimate the northern kingdom of Israel. This is about 50 years after they split. And so about 50 years in, Assyria comes, so they make this covenant with Egypt. Then 50 years after that, Assyria comes and just lays waste to the northern kingdom. And what they did was, what the Assyrians would do is they would divide marriages. You're no longer married to your husband's going to Assyria, you're going to stay here, and we're going to get one of our people to marry you. So they forced marriages to separate, and they began to mix blood. They would take your children, they would force your children to marry, and that's how Assyria ran things. They'd take half the population and send them off, but one of their biggest things was they divided households, and they forced them to intermarry. And so to a Jew, a mixed blood was like, forget it. And so now you have this mixed blood of people to the north who practices paganism and who actually broke away. And so the Jews considered Samaritans dogs. So they had this really sort of ethnic purity thing going on that, say it with me, it wasn't Jesus's thing. You understand? It was their thing, but it wasn't Jesus's thing. So they had created a system where they were at the top of the heap, right? So if you were, direct descendant of Abraham and your blood wasn't mixed, you were the golden child, right? You were everything. If you were a Gentile, they considered you goyim, or human cattle. This is how they saw them. If you were a Samaritan, well, you were worse than the Gentiles, and you were worse than the goyim. You were a dog, right? You were like the worst of the worst, right? You were as low as you could go to them.